I'm Renita Vermeulen, and joining me today is Aussie Moto3 star Joel Kelso. Joel, welcome to Fox Sports, and also welcome back home to Oz, currently in the European summer break. But I'm guessing it's been quite nice to take a little step back from racing and head home to reset.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here. And awesome to be back in Oz. And it was awesome we could line up a quick chat as well. So, yeah, look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to start by talking about your season so far. Looking at your results, you've scored points in nearly every race so far. Plus, you had those incredible top 5 finishes back in Portugal and Jerez. I want to know from you, how do you feel that the season's progressing so far?
Yeah, it's definitely the best season as to date in World Championship. So we started off the season really, really strong. And I think that's great. Going into the second part of the season after a strong first half of the season is always confident booster. And knowing that we're so close to making that breakthrough is obviously a great feeling. And we're having a really smooth season at the moment, not making any big mistakes. Like you said, some good points in all of them. Even on not our great days, we're still in them points, which is important for the championship by the end of the year. So it's just been a really consistent year, and I look forward to the second half.
You mentioned there that it's been smooth so far. Was there something that clicked at the start of the year? Is it the fact that you're in a different environment, a new team? What has made this year the best year that you've had so far?
Well, I think it's the year that we've come into it the fittest, and we're not coming off any previous injuries. And then, we're just taking it in a very good approach. Obviously, when you're fighting fit, it's a lot easier to come into the season. And did some really, really good training. Got a really good management group around me now that's helping me out. And we've just made everything a lot more smoother and just focusing on race weekends. And that's all I have to worry about is do the training and go to the race weekend. I think that's really good environment. I think environment's such a big thing for a racer. So I'm really starting to feel great in racing and the aspect of life of just being able to go training and racing.
With the bike, the technical side of everything, is there something in particular that you and the team are working on or have worked on it in that first part of the season that's helping you feel more comfortable on the bike?
Yeah, for sure. So we changed to the Pirelli tires this year, and obviously that's been a big adjustment, but also it's a new bike. So this bike has been developing for about 2-3 years from KTM side. And so that's been a big adjustment. I went from the other bike, which I've been riding for 2 or 3 years now, and it's a big step. And obviously you need to understand the bike. And that's where we've just been working really hard to be able to get the maximum out of this bike and understand it as best possible, because whoever understands it the most is going to go fast. And so it's just been trying to relay all the information, connected together with the team, and we just got to work in the same direction. And I think that's what it's been really good being with this team is got a really good crew around me, and we're all lining up the dots and closing everything in together. And that's what's kept us on a path going upwards and slowly progressing.
You mentioned the Pirellis, and there was something that I wanted to talk to you about. How hard was it transitioning from a different tire manufacturer to Pirellis now? I guess for someone who doesn't race, right, you would think, oh, it's not that big of a jump, but I'm guessing for a racer, it is quite a lot going from one to the other.
Yeah, for sure. So going from Dunlop to Pirelli has been massive, because Pirelli provides so much more grip, and which changes the riding style, and but also you lose a bit of life degradation. So you got to be able to manage with that, which is really good, because when you step up to Moto2 and MotoGP, obviously that's the aspect that Moto3 didn't have, the tire degradation. So now with the Pirellis, we actually get that effect, which is awesome, because you start to learn how to manage it from such a young age, like now. So there's that aspect, and there's obviously the aspect of we're going 1 second or 1.5 seconds more faster lap, which is massive. So that changes your completely different reference points, and obviously just the style of riding the tire to get it through the race. For one hot lap, we have the SC1, SC2, which is a soft and the hard compound. So doing the lap time with SC1, but then also being consistent and fast on SC2 is two things to manage. So it's been a really big learning curve. It's really nice. Honestly, I'm really enjoying the time on the Pirelli, and they're great tires. So yeah.
With regards to the lap times and what you just mentioned there about the difference in tires, how important is qualifying, I guess, for we see it a lot in MotoGP, and we see it, I guess, a little bit in Moto2, where you mentioned the tire degradation and that, but going out on the fresh tires in qualifying, getting that front row or second row start, how much does that actually benefit you guys in a race? Is those battles that you're having, if you are starting further back in the field, to have to get through, that comes into play? And then I'm guessing with tire degradation and having to manage that, how important is qualifying then for your race?
Well, for sure, because yeah, like you said, it's when you're passing and going through the pack, you obviously use up more of your tire. So it's super important. Also, you can be a lot more smooth and consistent on the tire if you're starting at the front. So it's not a make or break. Obviously, Moto3 is a little bit like a bit more big group slipstream. That's why everyone loves Moto3. But definitely plays into account this year. Like, as in, if you're starting more far back, is the more time that you're destroying the tire because you got to move forward. So which means you got to open the gas a lot more hard to get a good run to pass the guy into the next corner, which obviously you want to do as less strength as you can on the rear tire because the front doesn't really come too much into play. It's more just from the rear. So, yeah, it's just about managing that. And obviously a good qualifying saves you seconds on track, and seconds on track is always important.
Always important. I wanted to know your opinion. So one of the changes that came into play was the removal of the morning warm-up on Sunday, and it was replaced with the MotoGP rider parade. As a rider, what is your thoughts on this? Because I can share my opinion, and I actually miss seeing you guys on track and seeing who is going to be fastest going in. But do you find that it's doesn't make a difference for you, or you do miss that track time?
No, honestly, it does play an effect, of course. Like, imagine you crash in qualifying, then you got to go out the next day and race, and you haven't been on the bike since. So if you completely destroy your bike, obviously you're going into the race unknown. But at the same time, it's one of the things, you will step into the new future, and that's just the way it's going. And honestly, it's not a downside or an upside. There's just, okay, it's a little bit extra track time if you have the warm up, but everyone's in the same boat, you know. So we all got the same conditions. So at the end, it's honestly, it's a little bit extra time in the bed. So what can you complain? You know, it's definitely one that you just got to look at and go, look, everyone's in the same boat. So we're all out there at the same conditions. So if they can go into the race, you can go into the race. You know, obviously a little bit less track time and obviously TV time, but at the end, it's also great because it's a bit more of a show the race weekend. You know, with the MotoGP parade, like you said, it's good for the fans and stuff like that. So yeah, we got to think of also the future of MotoGP.
We do, definitely. And like you said, the fans are a big part. And I know that you guys in Moto3 are getting to experience what the MotoGP riders with the hero walk and things. We're seeing more of that, especially on social media, where I can see the Moto3 riders are getting to be involved a lot more. And that's all we want, right? Is to you guys to be able to progress further. But that's enough about on-track action. I want to know about you, the rider, okay? Random question. Do you have any pre-race rituals? The first thing I think of is, Valentino Rossi with his like certain steps to get on the bike. Do you have something like that you follow?
Down to the interesting stuff. So yeah, I put left sock on before the right, always left boot on before the right, left glove, vice versa. So that's probably the one as strange as ritual, I guess. But we all have our own little ones, but it's funny, every year it gets bigger and bigger. You do one good race and you've done like one ritual different. You go, oh, I'm going to keep that ritual from now on, So there's always something that's creeping in. So each year I'm going to be surprised once we get to MotoGP to see how big the list is going to be. But, it's every year extending for sure.
What does it feel like to be sitting on the line right before the lights go green? What's running through your head at that moment in time?
Yeah, well, at the moment you're just so focused in for the race, So you're thinking of what scenarios you need to put yourself in to be in the best position on the last lap. So there's, all factors. Every race is different. There might be a track that's always going to be a big group, so you prepare for being in a big group. You also go to tracks that you prepare that there's going to be a smaller group. So it's all your preparation. You got to be prepared for all, and that's what you're thinking of, honestly, at that moment. Obviously, you just try to zone anything else out except for what you're doing on track.
Wow. So it's clear that you guys as athletes are so mentally focused and driven, and just hearing you talk about everything so far, it's incredible to see how we watch it on TV and you're like, okay, it looks like you're having fun and you're in these big battles and everything, but you guys are so laser focused to literally like the millimeter, understanding the bike, the tires, there's so much going on, right? It's not like you can just jump on and go full gas and ride around. There's a lot to it, which is pretty cool. Let's talk about off the bike then. What does off bike training, what does that look like for you? I know when I was doing some research on you, you have a flat track background, which is very common in road races. We talk about Casey, you talk about Chris, and even the guys who you're competing with now do it. Do you still do a lot of flat track? Do you do motocross? What sort of off track action are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So preparation for a race weekend is one of the most crucial parts. So pre-season, back here in the summer break, off-season work is so important, not only just on the bike, also mentally. Like you said, you got to be prepared mentally to go into every race weekend. And that's, the biggest free of energy out there. So we do heaps of stuff with that. Obviously, we do cycling, we do flat track, motocross, trials, mountain bike riding, gym, all sorts. You gotta vary out and do everything that you possibly can, because everything's a free advantage. And if you can get that one step above everyone else is key. And I think you can learn from all different sports. We do motocross and flat track. Like you said, my background is flat track, but I stopped doing it for a few years when I first went over there, and then got back into it now. And it's super important, because every sport, which is in itself is the same. It's a motorbike, but it's all different, right? But you can learn from everything. Motocross has its techniques that is super crucial. So I think motocross is really important for. It's super physical, and you can't really make a mistake, because you learn from that mistake really fast, because you fall out the rut or whatever and you crash. And so my hats go off to all the motocross boys. Like you see, like Jet Lawrence and all that. They look like they're doing it super easy, but they're out there smashing it. So there's every sport that has their little part. The flat track is for sliding and stuff, and you learn that, and that more comes into play when you're on a bigger bike like MotoGP or Moto2. But everything you're trying to prepare for to go to MotoGP, so everything adds up over the years. And I think obviously, except for the physical and mental training, because also you're going into a race weekend mentally strong, because you've put the most work out there that is possible. If you're doing 2-3 times a day training, that's you go into the race weekend confident in yourself. You're going there knowing that you've given you 110% the last 2 weeks after the last race, because we don't have much time off. You remember, we have only a week or two off in between each race, or sometimes we don't. So it's super important to get in the maximum amount of training, but also not be fatigued at the same time, because you've got to go into the race re-energized. So it's a fine balance, but I think that's what, we've changed trainer this year as well over in Barcelona. So I moved from Mallorca to Barcelona, and that's been really helpful, because I was able to do more motocross and more flat track. In Mallorca was a little bit more road bikes. So it's interesting. You got to play to your strengths, but also you got to work on your weaknesses. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned this year, is working on my weaknesses.
What would you say, if you're happy to talk about it, what would you say your weaknesses are on the bike and on track?
Look, everyone has their weaknesses, like as in that's our example. I think I destroy a little bit too much the tire, so we've been trying to work on that with doing a lot more flat track, or doing some bigger bike training. We did some training on 600 on the big track in Barcelona. We're getting a bigger bike, 1,000, to start training on, because I think that can be really helpful with the tire life. And so, because it's all about a different riding style during the race, like I said before, to save your tire to be well. And like last year, proven we had 5 front rows, but we just are still learning and figuring out how to manage your tire to the end of the race, and we're starting to get really good at it. And I think will show that the work's paying off behind the scenes for sure.
You mentioned there about riding styles, and I wanted to, I guess, elaborate on that a little bit. It's interesting watching you guys on the TV, because you can see when a rider might go into a corner a little bit tighter, might take a wider entrance, or wherever it may be. Have you found that, like you said, you're incorporating more of like your own circuit time, motocross, flat track from your background? Have you noticed that your riding style is changing, or it's evolving more as you're getting more comfortable on the bike, or building your skills outside of it?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely develop and you change, and you don't notice it as like necessarily directly after. It's more an added up thing. You take like the preseason I think you mentally reset, you mentally go into that year with a new objective, and I think you take in what you've learned from the year before into that next year or over the summer break. And when you work on your weaknesses, which this year I figured out a lot better how to manage your tire and still be able to exit the corner in a better way. I've taken what I learned last year and the start of this year into put it in place, because we're training during January, February, and March to get ready for the first race in the end of March. And that's where you put into all the work. The race weekend is where you show all the hard work you've done in training, and you bring that into development for sure. So it's super, super important to be aware of your weaknesses.
Okay, so we've ticked off the weakness. Let's push that to the side. I want to talk about probably, I would say, one of the best moments, and I'm going to say that you might agree. I want to rewind the clock back to October last year, October 21st, 2023, Phillip Island. I was there and I remember it was very cold, very windy, and very, very wet. But for you, probably one of the greatest days that you've experienced so far in your career, your first ever Moto3 podium place, and that cherry on top being on the home soil. Can you talk us through what that final lap was like? What was running through your head?
Well, I guess start from the whole weekend. It was just special. Obviously, Phillip Island is so special, not only for all the fans and all the Aussie crowd out there. You have your family there, so there's just nothing more emotional than having all the fans shouting your name, your family there supporting you, just everyone around you is there. The moment is great, and we're in front all the weekend when the weather was also decent, so it was a shame when it came down to raining on Sunday. I was thinking, gee, this is going to be, up in the air a bit, because it's in an unknown circumstance. And I think it just really helped being the home GP. We pulled out the bag and we'll be able to do an amazing race and finish on the podium. And honestly, words can't describe how emotionally and how happy you can feel after, finally securing your first Moto3 podium, and not only that, at home, going into Parc Fermé, no matter how the weather was, still having all your family there at the Parc Fermé, sitting up on top of that podium, looking down at everyone is a spectacular feeling. And I bloody hope it happens again this year, I'll tell you that much. I'm dying to have that happen again.
We definitely want to see you on the podium again this year, but I want to know that trophy. Where is it? Did mum take it home with her, or have you got that where you're living in Spain?
No, I got that locked away up in Darwin. That's my special piece that, is going to be locked away in a case forever and remembered for forever. Honestly, it's just one of those special moments. Your first ever podium, it's just an incredible experience and moment, and be able to live that is just, incredible.
Oh, I could only imagine the excitement and how amazing that would be. But when I was researching you, your story for how you got into Moto3 was amazing. You moved to Italy when you were 15 years old, tiny, tiny tot, 15 years old. I don't know how your mum let you go. And then you obviously had your mentor Jake, who basically just took you under his wing whilst you completed the European Championships. How beneficial for an Aussie going over to Europe, racing on these circuits before you entered in the World Championships? I guess the circuits here in Australia, they're not like they are in Europe. The riders here in Australia, they aren't like in Europe. How beneficial was it for you doing all those early years there before you stepped onto the world stage?
Oh, it's crucial. It's I think what makes or breaks a rider, honestly, but also coming from Australia makes you so tough, I think, mentally as well, because you're sacrificing so much, like you said. Like, my mum had to let me go at 15, so you're mentally strong because you've just sacrificed so much to be there. So you just never give up, and I think that's what makes Australian riders just great. And I think that's why there's so many legends, just because we've travelled so far. We're not walking out our front door and just going racing. And I think the years that I had to be over in Europe was just special, and to be able to represent Australia has just been amazing over there, and all the hard work that's gone into it. Like you said, Jake, sacrificed a lot of his life coming over there and taking me under his wing. It's just been a spectacular moment, and to be able to finally arrive to our goal, which was World Championship in Moto3, and now our next goal obviously is MotoGP. But just to achieve that first goal and tick that off the box is spectacular. And honestly, the first moment, the first race in World Championship, I remember it clear as day in Sachsenring it was just amazing time. And you really appreciate all the people around you that have got you to where you are, honestly, because without them, it wouldn't be possible. So it's a massive journey. And like you said, it's an incredible story that I had coming up the 3-4 years. Was in Europe before arriving at the World Championship. Goes as a secret, but really it's just most special moments that really have made it possible to arrive to World Championship.
You mentioned there that you have a solid team around you now. That only came on board this year from what my understanding was, but how important was you to, I'm going to start that again. How important was it for you to get that solid team around you just so you could take your mind off of things and focus on your racing?
Oh, for sure. Like at 15, I decided to go out and practically do it alone, like as in without a big team around me. And I did it alone for so many years, and it worked, sure. But it's so important to have such a good team around you. And I learned that last year, coming to the end of the year, I learned that, especially after everything that happened, it was time to really get a professional and big team around me to make it possible to keep making steps up, to go to Moto2, then MotoGP. And the only way to do that is to have a good support crew around you, because without it, you're doing it on your backside yourself. And honestly, you can we're trying to race motorbikes, and we're trying to also manage everything else. It can get difficult, and I think it was time to make that step where you just get people around you, the people you trust, and look after you behind the scenes, so you can just focus on what your weak points are, and be able to work on that, and to think of just motorbikes each weekend, and be able to improve each time going out and try to go get them race wins every weekend.
So on summer break now, but heading into the British Grand Prix for that second half of the season, how are you feeling going into the British Grand Prix?
Can't wait. I can't wait to get started again. 3 weeks. It seems like a really short time, obviously, but it feels like a lot as a racer, because all I want to do is go back out there and race bikes. So I'm digging to get back in. I can't wait. I head back off from Australia tomorrow night, so then straight back into it when we ride back in on Wednesday into Europe. So I can't wait to get back in for a week of training, get back into that mental side of things, going, okay, we're ready to go racing next week in Silverstone. And I can't wait to get underway and start the second part of the season off, because honestly, I love it. Like, we come obviously to Australia, so in between the race, I get to come back home. I think that's special. I think that's why I enjoy so much the second half of the season. And also, obviously, the Asia route is super nice for me. I love traveling around, seeing new countries, and just the environment around. So, and obviously the Aussie GP that's coming up in a few months' time. I'm digging for that, and I think that pushes you through for the second half of the season. It's just around the corner that the home GP is, and like I say, it's one of the specialist things you can live, as a motorbike rider, is going to your home GP and just in performing in front of your home crowd, but also obviously your family. So honestly, I'm just digging. I can't wait to get underway.
Speaking about Phillip Island in October, do you have anything special planned? Any maybe one-off helmet designs or something like that for this year?
Look, there's a lot of things in the works, so hopefully we'll find out some stuff that we can do and make a special event, because every year you got to try to change it up and make a special event, but I'm sure we'll do it. Last year I did the homecoming ride, and that was really special. I think there was probably about 500 or so people in that ride, so it was just awesome to see everyone out there. So I'm sure MotoGP, and we'll do something this year that will be nice events before the race weekend, and get to hang out with the fans. And I think it's always great to just walk around on that main street and meet all the fans, So, look forward to doing that again.
As an Aussie rider coming back home, do you feel a bit like a rock star? I guess coming back to Australia, people wanting more photos with you, maybe they know you a bit more because you are the Aussie rider. Is it cool? Do you feel like a rock star?
Yeah, of course. And also, like, the Australian fans are so good. Like, you can see it when they're at the footy example. They just love it. We get right into our sport, don't we, from here in Oz, and we just love supporting our own kind. So it's just awesome to see them. Like, they're out there during the rain, like over the Phillip Island weekend last year. Like, the weather was horrible, and you could still see thousands of people out in the rain, standing there supporting a local bloke like myself, and they just absolutely love it. So it's, hats off to them. They're the one that makes our sport bright and brings up, the motivation for us as well. When you're there, they lift you off the ground. Honestly, you feel incredible over that weekend. It's just because of the fans.
I could only imagine what that feels like. But Joel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. We can't wait to see you at the island. I can't wait to see all the fans. They're supporting you once again. We wish you all the best for the remainder of the season, and we'll see you in October.
Can't wait. See you then.